That rant of false information does not bring this country together. If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My God.
If you want to talk about
dividing this country,
it is my
I follow
time.
you on your social media posts that
It is
tear
my
this country
time
apart.
to address
There should be a
your
unifying-
falsehoods.
Oh,
You are an
you can
embarrassment
try all
to the
you
division
want
in this country.
to not
Senator,
take
it is my
responsibility
time.
for what
You
you
had
have
your
said.
time.
Sir, you're
Your
making
time
a
is
mockery of this
over.
committee. Sir, you don't tell me my time is over.
You
The
know how
people
far
of New
we've
Jersey
come
tell me
since
what
you
my time is.
Senator,
You can't lecture me.
you can tell me
Sir,
my time's over?
You may be the charge of the
I'm not
FBI,
going anywhere.
but I am not afraid of you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Not afraid of you.
There's a moment in Washington that happens occasionally, not often, but occasionally, where someone in a hearing room says something so precise and so uncomfortably true that the room doesn't quite know how to process it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, I want to start off where we left off last time. I asked you whether you had any knowledge or discussions about removing FBI officials and installing political personnel before you were confirmed to that position. And I wonder, did you then understand or have conversations with the White House about the intentions to do so?
Before I was confirmed,
Yes, sir.
did I have discussions with the White House to remove FBI personnel?
Yes.
No.
So you're saying that you had no discussions with the White House before you were in the position about the removal of any personnel from the agency?
As I was preparing for my confirmation hearing, I had numerous discussions involving the type of people that would be employed, and that those that were failing to meet the mark at the FBI would no longer be employed if I were
And I'm
confirmed.
assuming that mark had to do with loyalty to the Trump administration.
No, you're wrong.
Okay. I'd like to revisit another subject from that hearing. Did you testify, excuse me, you did testify before the grand jury that President Trump had declassified the documents at issue in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Is that correct?
That moment happened this week in the Senate, and if you blinked, you might have missed it underneath all the crosstalk and procedural chaos. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey looked directly at FBI Director Kash Patel and essentially told him, "You are going to be discarded." Not as an insult, as a prediction, based on evidence.
I don't have the grand jury transcript. That's why I released it. Whatever it says is the best evidence.
You know, that's what you said to Senator Whitehouse, that your grand jury testimony was publicly released. It has not been. In fact, in July, a court denied a news outlet's bid to get that transcript. But the court said quite clearly that you are free to discuss your grand jury testimony. So I ask you again, did you testify before the grand jury that President Trump declassified the documents at issue in the Mar-a-Lago classified document case?
And that is why I took your invitation to work with the department and the court to have that transcript released. And the transcript is the best evidence of what I said then.
So you're saying right now this committee can have access to what you said before the grand jury?
To whatever was released. Under my understanding, Senator, that the Department of Justice
You and I both
released.
understand the law. Let me finish.
I want to walk you through exactly what happened because the exchange is important, and the part that didn't make most headlines is actually the most significant part of the entire thing. Let's set the scene first, because context matters here. Patel has been FBI director for 7 months. In that time, the Bureau has undergone a restructuring unlike anything in its modern history.
I understand under Rule 6 of the Federal Rules of Procedure, a grand jury witness, in this case you, is not barred from sharing their grand jury testimony. This is an oversight hearing. This is germane to your integrity and credibility. You know right now whether or not you testified that President Trump declassified the documents at issue in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Why are you refusing to answer that simple yes or no question right now?
Because the premise of your question is inaccurate. And
There is no premise to my question, but trying to get to an order of what is truth or not.
How do you How do you know what was asked in the grand jury if you weren't there?
Mr. Patel, this is a mockery you're making of this hearing and simple questions.
It's a simple question. If you have
Mr.
a
Patel,
transcript,
during
you can
your
read the question,
nomination
but you don't have
hearing,
it.
you promised that, quote, all FBI employees will be protected against political retribution. When I asked you, are you aware of any plans or discussions to punish in any way, including termination, FBI agents or personnel associated with the Trump administration, you explicitly said under oath that you were not aware of any plans to punish FBI agents associated with criminal investigations of Donald Trump. I don't believe you were truthful. Firing FBI employees based solely on the cases that they are investigating, their case assignments, is illegal, and you know that. A new lawsuit that's been discussed numerous times, filed by 3 FBI officials, alleges that you carried out Donald Trump's campaign of retribution, in quotes, against FBI employees for, quote, failure to demonstrate sufficient political loyalty. One of those plaintiffs has been discussed today, Brian Driscoll. Now, we know 20 years of distinguished service to the FBI before you terminated him. Special agent in charge of FBI's Newark field office, where he operated with distinction. Medal of Valor winner, Shield of Bravery awards. He's a patriot. You terminated Driscoll via a letter dated October 8th, 2025, and in that letter you said that you were firing him pursuant to Article 2 of the Constitution. Well, you're not the President of the United States, and so I'm wondering under what authority you were allowed to terminate him.
That matter is under litigation, and I'm not able to discuss it.
Okay, well, discuss this. Did you have discussions with Stephen Miller?
Senior agents with decades of experience have been fired or pushed out. Entire task forces have been disbanded. Units focused on counterterrorism, foreign influence operations, public corruption, and crimes against children.
About firing this particular person or about his continuance in the FBI?
Not that I recall.
How often do you speak to Stephen Miller?
Frequently on our Homeland Security task forces.
You frequently talk with Stephen Miller about subjects other than Homeland Security Task Force issues, correct?
I frequently talk to Mr. Miller about Homeland Security task forces.
Has Stephen Miller ever given you his opinions on how to run your agency?
Mr. Miller's interagency operations are invaluable to the FBI. That's what we talk about.
So you frequently discuss your job and your responsibilities with Stephen Miller and Pam Bondi, I imagine, as well.
Absolutely. She's the Attorney General.
Understood. Okay. Donald Trump promised to make us all safer. You have pushed out senior FBI agents with decades of knowledge and experience. In fact, this is the first time in FBI history that neither the director nor the deputy director have any experience with the FBI. You've shifted the agency's priorities primarily to pursuing Donald Trump's immigration enforcement agenda. According to ICE data, the Cato Institute, which is a conservative think tank, found that 20% of all agents have been diverted from their work to assist ICE immigration enforcement. 20%. Part of this operation is the work of mass law enforcement who jump out of cars, snatch people off streets at churches, schools, and their jobs and hospitals. Have there been any FBI agents who investigate crimes against children that have been assigned to immigration enforcement, yes or no?
The acting deputy director Patel removed was a Medal of Valor recipient. The counterterrorism chief he pushed out had recently helped prevent an ISIS attack. The institutional knowledge that walked out the door with these officials took years, sometimes decades, to accumulate. It cannot be replaced by a hiring cycle.
The premise of what you say is entirely
Have there been
false.
any FBI agents who investigate foreign domestic terrorism?
You don't get to say America is not safer under this leadership.
I am not saying
America
that.
is safer because of the work of the FBI.
You're making a presumption of premise.
4,700 children.
Sir,
we have seized 6,000 weapons and 23,000 violent felons have been arrested.
that FBI agents who investigate human trafficking have been reassigned to immigration enforcement. You are not denying that FBI agents who are on the task force that fight against Russian oligarchs have not been reassigned. Public Correction Squad reassigned. People who defend children reassigned. You're not denying that. I've seen you time and time again attack my colleagues' premises of questions as a way to not answer the question. So let me end with this. I believe you have made our country weaker and less safe. I believe that we are more vulnerable to a major event, and I pray to God it doesn't happen. You've gutted the Bureau of Institutional Knowledge and Expertise. You fired or pushed out seasoned FBI officials, many with more than 20 years of experience, and were working on cases that were critical. You've been purging thousands of serious law enforcement officials who spent their careers keeping us safe, only to lower hiring standards in order to find anyone to replace them. And shockingly, you admitted in this hearing to Senator Coons that it would take 14 years to fill the vacancies at your agency. Many are the result of your purge. 20% of FBI agents are doing low-level immigration enforcement instead of their mission-critical work. You've disbanded entire task forces that stop election interference, foreign influence, public corruption. And who benefits from this? Well, corrupt people benefit from it. Criminals benefit from it. Vladimir Putin benefits from it. And it really makes me wonder who you're looking out for. It makes me think we can't trust you as a nation. You swear to release the Epstein files, but now you're withholding the Epstein files. You claim that you have a suspect in a serious assassination. Whoops, then you don't have a suspect. You know nothing about plans to remove FBI agents, yet you're directly involved in those plans. In the words of an ex-FBI official, you are overseeing, and I quote, generational destruction of the nation's premier law enforcement agency.
This is not disputed. These are documented facts about what has happened to the FBI in 7 months under Patel. What is disputed, and what Booker pressed on directly, is the question of why, not the stated justification, which is that these officials failed to meet Patel's standards for the Bureau, the actual reason. Because when you look at the pattern of who was fired, a through line emerges that Patel has been reluctant to address clearly under oath.
Mr. Patel, in just 8 months, you have assaulted the institutional integrity of the FBI. But I know FBI field agents. I've worked with them in Newark. No matter how truly bad you are, you can't undermine the legacy of agents who fight every day to keep us safe, but you can tarnish the integrity of the agency and undermine the agency's capacity. I believe you're failing as a leader, and that your failure does have serious implications for the safety and security of Americans and our families. We're more vulnerable to domestic and foreign attack because of your failures of leadership. I don't think you're fit to hand the Bureau, but here's the thing, Mr. Patel. I think you're not going to be around long. I think this might be your last oversight hearing. Because as much as you supplicate yourself to the will of Donald Trump and not the Constitution of the United States of America, Donald Trump has shown us in his first term and in this term, he is not loyal to people like you. He will cut you loose. This may be the last time I have a hearing with you because I don't think you're long for your job. But I'm going to tell you this. I pray for you. I pray for you that you can step up and defend your oath, defend the Constitution, and do a much better job of defending this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to say anything?
Yes,
at this
sir.
point?
That rant of false information does not bring this country together. If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My
If you-
God.
If
You're
you
gonna
want to
lecture
talk
me
about,
dividing this country,
it is my
I follow
time.
you on your social media posts that
it is
tear
my
this country
time
apart.
to
There
address
should be a
your
unifying-
falsehoods.
Oh,
You are an
you can try
embarrassment
all
to the
you
division
want
in this country.
to not
Senator,
take
it is
my
responsibility
time.
for what
You
you
had
have
your
said.
time.
Sir, you're
Your
making a
time is
mockery of this
over.
committee. Sir, you don't tell me my time is over.
You
The
know how
people
far
of New
we've
Jersey
come
tell me
since
what.
Many of the people who are gone had worked on investigations that were problematic for the current president of the United States. By the way, please leave your questions or comments in the comments section. I will answer each one individually as time permits. Also, I would be very happy if you liked the video and subscribed to my channel. Now, let's continue. Booker opened with a question that Patel spent considerable energy not answering. Did you have discussions with the White House about removing FBI personnel before you were confirmed to your position? Patel's response was technically a denial, but the framing was careful enough to be its own kind of answer. He acknowledged discussing what kinds of people would be employed and said those who failed to meet his standards wouldn't continue. Booker followed up by asking whether that standard had anything to do with loyalty to the Trump administration. Patel said no. The record of who was fired and who wasn't suggests the question is more complicated than that. Then came the grand jury question. Booker asked Patel directly whether he had testified before a grand jury that Trump had declassified the documents in the Mar-a-Lago classified records case. Patel said his testimony had been publicly released and that the transcript was the best evidence of what he said. Booker pointed out that a court had actually denied a media outlet's request for that transcript in July, meaning it has not, in fact, been publicly released. Patel's response was to say he'd been working to have it released and that the transcript would speak for itself. What he did not do was answer yes or no to a direct question about what he said under oath in an oversight hearing, where that is precisely the information being sought. Booker moved on. He went to the sworn statement Patel made during his confirmation hearing, that he was not aware of any plans to punish FBI agents associated with Trump investigations. There is now a lawsuit filed by 3 FBI officials alleging that Patel carried out a campaign of retribution targeting agents for what the lawsuit describes as failure to demonstrate sufficient political loyalty. One of those plaintiffs is Brian Driscoll, 20 years of distinguished FBI service, special agent in charge of the Newark Field Office, Medal of Valor winner, Shield of Bravery awardee. Patel terminated him via a letter dated October 8th, citing Article 2 of the Constitution as the authority for the dismissal. Booker noted, correctly, that Patel is not the President of the United States, and Article 2 authority does not rest with the FBI director. Patel said the matter is under litigation and he couldn't discuss it. Booker asked whether Patel had discussed Driscoll's termination with Stephen Miller. Patel said not that he recalled. Booker asked how often Patel speaks with Miller. Frequently, Patel said, on Homeland Security task forces. Booker pressed on whether Miller had ever offered opinions on how to run the FBI. Patel's answer was that Miller's interagency operations were invaluable to the FBI's success. That is a remarkable answer. The man overseeing the White House's domestic policy and immigration enforcement apparatus is, by the FBI director's own description, deeply involved in FBI operations. That's not a normal chain of command for an agency that is supposed to operate with institutional independence from political direction. But the section of this hearing that will matter most in the long run came at the end of Booker's time, and it was less a series of questions than a carefully constructed closing argument. He laid out the full scope of what has happened in 7 months. The FBI now has, for the first time in its history, neither a director nor a deputy director with any prior FBI experience. 20% of all FBI agents have been diverted to immigration enforcement, a figure drawn from ICE data analyzed by the Cato Institute, which is a conservative think tank, not a left-leaning advocacy group. Entire task forces focused on election interference, foreign influence operations, and public corruption have been dismantled. The agency acknowledged in this very hearing that it would take 14 years to fill the vacancies created by the current wave of departures and terminations. Booker asked the question that gives all of this its sharpest edge: who benefits? Not rhetorically, analytically. When you remove the people who investigate public corruption, corrupt people benefit. When you dismantle the units tracking Russian influence operations, Vladimir Putin benefits. When you reassign agents who were working on crimes against children to enforce immigration law, whoever those agents were investigating benefits from their absence. These are logical consequences, not partisan accusations. And Booker named them plainly. Then he made the prediction. He told Patel directly, "I don't think you're going to be around much longer." He said it without malice and without satisfaction. He said it as an observation about how this president operates, grounded in the documented history of Trump's first term and the early pattern of his second. The list of people who served Trump loyally, absorbed the public criticism that came with doing what he asked, protected him when it was costly to do so, and then found themselves fired, humiliated, or simply discarded when they became inconvenient, that list is long and it keeps growing. John Kelly, James Mattis, Rex Tillerson, Jeff Sessions, Bill Barr, Mark Esper. Each one of them did things for Trump that damaged their own reputations and careers. Each one of them was eventually cut loose. Booker's point was not that Patel deserves sympathy. His point was that the pattern is the pattern, and Patel is inside it whether he recognizes it or not. He is dismantling an institution, firing decorated professionals, stonewalling congressional oversight, and doing all of it for a president whose loyalty to the people who serve him has a well-established expiration date. Booker said he would pray for Patel. He said he hoped Patel would find the strength to defend his oath and the Constitution. Coming from someone who had just spent 10 minutes laying out an indictment of that man's leadership, it landed as something genuine rather than performative. Patel's response was immediate. He said Booker's remarks were a rant of false information. Then he told Booker his time was over. Booker told him that the people of New Jersey decide when his time is over, not the FBI director. The chairman stepped in, noted that he had asked for order at the start of the hearing, and gave Patel uninterrupted time to respond. What Patel said in that response is worth examining carefully because it's been circulating as a rebuttal to Booker's argument, and it doesn't actually address Booker's argument. Patel cited numbers. 23,000 violent criminals arrested this year, double the figure from the same period last year. 6,000 weapons seized. 1,500 child predators identified and arrested. 4,700 children found. 300 human traffickers in custody. 1,600 kilograms of fentanyl seized, a 25% increase from last year. 88,000 kilograms of cocaine. Counterintelligence arrests already exceeding last year's total numbers, with significant increases in operations targeting China, Russia, and Iran. These numbers are real. I'm not going to dismiss them. The men and women doing that work in the field deserve to have their results acknowledged. But here is what those numbers do not address, and this is the critical distinction that keeps getting lost in coverage of this hearing. Booker was not arguing that the FBI has made 0 arrests in the past 7 months. He was arguing that the institutional foundation underneath those arrests is being systematically hollowed out. The agents in the field are still doing their jobs, many of them in spite of what's happening at the leadership level, not because of it. The damage Booker described is not visible in this year's arrest statistics. It will be visible in 5 years, in 10 years, when the institutional knowledge that walked out the door with those fired veterans isn't there to handle the next major counterterrorism case, the next major foreign influence operation, the next sophisticated public corruption investigation that requires decades of specialized expertise to prosecute. Patel said 14 years to fill the vacancies. He said it himself. You cannot cite 1 year of arrest statistics as a rebuttal to a 14-year timeline of institutional damage. Those are two completely different conversations, and treating them as the same conversation is either a misunderstanding or a deliberate deflection. The chairman of the committee has his own questions to answer about how this hearing was managed. Multiple Democratic senators said publicly that Patel repeatedly talked over them during questioning, prevented them from completing full questions, and that the chairman intervened against the senators far less often than the dynamic warranted. When Booker finally refused to cede the floor and Patel continued to push back, it was the chairman who had to restore order. And the senator's point about who controls a senator's time was not just procedural. It was a statement about authority and independence that applies to the broader situation Patel embodies. Here's the thing about this hearing that I keep coming back to. The statistics Patel cited at the end were delivered with confidence and some legitimate pride. He clearly believes the numbers tell the story. And, in a narrow, immediate sense, they do tell a story. But Booker was telling a different story about a longer time frame and a deeper kind of damage, the kind that doesn't show up in arrest totals until it's too late to reverse. He will cut you loose. That was Booker's closing message to Patel, not as a threat, as a warning delivered to someone who may not yet fully understand the situation he's in. The FBI director has made himself useful to this administration by doing things that have cost him professionally: his reputation, his relationships with the law enforcement community, his standing with the institutional history of the bureau he now leads. And if the pattern holds, the moment he stops being useful, or the moment he becomes a liability, the protection he believes he has will evaporate as quickly as it did for everyone else on that long list before him. Whether that moment comes in 6 months or 2 years, Booker's prediction is grounded in something more reliable than political opinion. It's grounded in what this president has consistently shown us he does with the people who serve him. The record is the record, and the record doesn't lie.